Hi. I really felt like it was important to do a live video today. And with everything that's been going on, especially this week, I thought, well, I'll kind of wait a week and see how things settle out. But today is 11/11, and that's such an important day um, for creativity. And so there was a lot of information going around last night. Michelle Walling from N5D posted an article about what's happening right now, the transformation process that we're going through, the awakening that we're going through. And so this is definitely not going to be a political post. I think we've had enough of that for right now. But it is important that we look at the big picture. So for me, when I look at the things that are happening around us, and especially what's so important, if you've been seeing 11/11, these repeating numbers, we've been talking about this since 2012. When I see the same number over and over, and 11/11 has been coming up a lot. And so I want to just briefly explain what that is. The 11/11 is, in simplest terms, your consciousness, your awakening, you melding with your highest source self in this physical form. And so what does that mean? That means you have more of your soul in this body, in this vehicle that you operate, but also that this body is changing, our DNA is changing. There's a lot of transformation that's been happening, and it's been very subtle up until about 6 months ago, and then we started seeing an increase in the intensity within our relationships, the shifts that's been going on in people's personal lives and in their work lives, not feeling happy, a rise of emotions. And especially this week, it's really been evident. Everybody's reacting in such vastly different, um, just from many different perceptions, so many different emotions arising. But last night, I had a dream where I encountered my higher self, and she gave me information about a part of me, an old part of me that I thought that I had dealt with. It was long gone. Um, and as I was starting to talk to my family this morning and some of my friends, many of us had dreams, especially last night, that kind of revealed these old parts of us that are holding us back. Things that have to do with ego, anger, negativity. And very often we make the mistake and we associate negativity with dark energy. Um, and it's clear that we distinguish between the two. So what does this all mean for today? 11/11 is a node point. It's a stargate that opens up. It is an opportunity to plant the seeds for things that's going to come in the next few months within your own personal life. This is about you. 1/1 is everything comes back to you. And so I would say if you look at before today and after today, there are many times that we encounter emotions and feelings in our lives, and we either bury them or we project them on other people. Maybe we're aware of it, maybe we're not. But very often we don't realize that it's really trying to be a mirror for ourselves. And so if you're in the field where you're working with people, whether it's through intuitive readings or channeling, Reiki, quantum healing, we're very much aware that our external environment is a reflection of our internal environment. And so right now, what's happening is everything is being revealed. This whole year has been about disclosure. There is no part of us that we can hide anymore. Anything that you have been avoiding is going to come up, and you're going to have to deal with it. And you're going to have to deal with it in a loving, compassionate, caring way. Your highest self, I like to think of that as my source self, that heart-centered part of me, is there to comfort you. It's there to bring forgiveness, to bring support, But we have to acknowledge that it's there in the first place, this inner voice that we all have. We can't just walk around anymore and say, well, that's just my imagination, or, maybe I was just making it up, or it doesn't mean anything. Is we have to acknowledge that, yes, this is a real part of us, and it's here to help me. And if I allow that, then there's a meld that happens. And so no longer do you have to leave an aspect of your consciousness. You don't have to step out of the conscious mind and into the subconscious mind to access this information. It's readily available, whether you're in a state of trance or hypnosis or in meditation. All those things are there to help you train your ear to hear that inner voice. But it's always there. It's constant. And so you have to have confidence. You have to be confident in who you are. We can't look to other people to fix our problems. We can use them as sounding boards, but we have to be truthful with one another. And we have to be able to accept that information. And so that means if you were to ask somebody for advice or for input on something that's going on in your life, that you have to genuinely be open to hear what they have to say. And if you're in the shoes of the person that's giving this advice, then you have to be truthful. You can't filter it through your own life experiences, because that kind of clouds the information. That's about you, so everything comes back to you. I'm trying to cover as much information as I can in a short amount of time, but basically just know that things are being revealed. And to me, that's a good thing. I think for too long, we've lived in not just this society, but years upon years upon years of building on top of old belief systems, old ways of thinking. We have to completely take this foundation down to its core, reset it, and start fresh. And it doesn't have to be a big traumatic thing unless you want it to be. I was thinking about, we were talking about Taoism, and one of the messages that they have is, if you think of your life as a train, and you have all this cargo that you're carrying with you, all these traumatic things, all these beliefs, all these worries, just, the accumulation of life experiences. And you can think of letting go or forgiving as standing at the back of this train and, slowly throwing a box off at a time. Or the Taoist way is you can just go up to the engine and just pull out the pin and just let it all go. And I quite like that idea. But to me, I was thinking, we're on this planet for a reason. I am here on this planet at this time because my highest soul aspect, my source self, felt that this was the best expression of who I am. And so, who am I to fight that? Who are you to fight who you are? We don't have to shape ourselves to have approval from anybody else or to fit into anybody else's box of way of thinking and believing, because we're so afraid of hurting people's feelings. And it doesn't mean that when you're being truthful to yourself that it has to come off in a hurtful way. But I think as you naturally grow, you're going to grow out of relationships. Maybe they'll outgrow you. Those things will all happen very naturally. And that's also a key word, that this is a very natural process. If things are going to progress forward, and you can fight it as much as you want, you'll be dragging yourself, kicking and screaming. And so why not cooperate with that? Why not recognize that there's a rebirth that's happening, a release, a shift. A shift is literally happening from moment to moment. We have these big shifts, which are these nodes, like today would be considered a node, where there's a mass shift in consciousness. But that's also a process. There's a beginning point, there's a growth, there's a maturity, and then there's an integration, and then it dissolves. One of the examples that was given, and I included in the book that we recently published, Beyond the Veil, the collective stories of us, and how they described this process that we're going through is like a flower. And at first you have the seed, and the seed meets the earth, and then it meets the rain, it meets the animals, it meets the people, and that seed begins to grow. It begins to grow a stem. If it's not interfered with, then this flower is going to keep growing. And at no point is that seed, that plant that's growing, is it lacking anything. At any point in its development, it is as complete as it can be, but there's potentiality for eventually for the flower to come and to bloom and to create more seeds and for that cycle to progress. And so we're the same way. At no point do we lack anything. We're always enough. It's within that we have forgotten that we have that creative power within us, that this duality that we're seeing in the world around us is about pointing out that we've all, in a way, given up our own creative power, our own divine power. It's, in some cases, we say, well, it's being taken from us through strength, through other people. This is when we blame. But if I take responsibility back and I say, no, I am in charge of how I feel, how I create, what I do, who I am, well, then there's nothing that can come my way that there's not going to be a solution for. Every time that a problem is presented, immediately there's a solution that's presented too. This is just how the universe works. Whether you're going to recognize that solution right away or not, that's a different story. And so very often we don't see that there's a solution that's presented, and we go through these cycles over and over again until finally you have that aha moment and you're like, oh, okay, now I get, why this person was in my life, or why I had to go through the situation, what I learned out of it. But today, I invite you to set a clear intent to be a part of this transformation process. There's a certain air of mystery about it. Mystery is your intuition. We don't have to know how everything is going to turn out. We don't know. When we come into this life, we don't have every day planned out. We have a general idea of what we would like to see happen. But there's a fair amount of mystery to it. And that's where we have to, trust that we are always connected to these higher aspects of ourselves through our intuition, through that inner voice that we have. And it's not going to guide you wrong. And the other question is also, to what part of your intuition or your higher self do you want to connect to? You want to connect to the lower levels, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe that's more where you encounter your guides or past over loved ones. They're closer to you. It's more personal that way. You want your higher self or the source self, which is the part of you that knows why you're here, knows everything about your life. The part that kind of keeps you in check. It's also the part that communicates through your physical body if you have ailments or pains, aches. Or you can even connect to above that, to the highest counsel, to your counsel. This is part of your team that you have that helps with the evolution, the information, and the potential. There's so much more, and we think of things in these such linear ways, and it's the one thing I wish I could just kind of break it all apart, and so that we stop thinking of things linearly. Even if we talk about the ascension process, we talk about, well, we're in 3D, and then we're going to go to 4D, and then 5D. That is still linear. Break out of that pattern. We're constantly in and out of other dimensions and in between dimensions. You don't have to know the mechanics of every little detail, so let that part go. Just know sometimes you're more connected, other times maybe, you need to go more into your own inner world. But there's so much potential. Tap into the potential of who you are. That doesn't mean that you're living in the future. It just means that you're opening up this spectrum of your consciousness, of your source self. You're accessing more parts of you, and in essence, bringing more of your soul into this realm to help with this transition bridge that we have. The best way that you can access this information within yourself is through being creative. You don't have to follow any practice or ritual or religion or school of thought. It's literally just being creative. If you love cooking, then cook with all your heart. If you like painting, then paint. If you want to doodle, then doodle. It doesn't matter what you do. As long as it's something creative, you're creating something. Step away from the distraction of the television and the media and Facebook. Even though I'm on Facebook now, it's what are we using those things for? Are you using it to educate yourself, to gain knowledge, adding more to you, at the same time having the wisdom of realizing of what you need to let go of? And so go with the flow, be the water. And so Michelle Walling had, as part of her article, and I really encourage you to read that, had some information in there from Magenta Pixie, and she's a lady, I believe she's from the UK. And she was going into a lot of this too about, the process that we're going through, timeline shifts. We had a shift the day of the election. Several of my circle of people that I know, we felt it, and definitely there's more people, online that was talking about it. But there was a timeline that was truncated. Regardless of all what we perceive as chaos going on, the next morning when we woke up, how many of you woke up with high energy and intensity? Whether you perceive that as positive or negative, but there was a certain intensity. At the same time, it also felt like there was a certain weight that was lifted, in the sense of an anchor that was pulled up. And so we're gaining momentum. 20 years ago, when we set intentions and did affirmations, it took a long time for those things to come to fruition. Maybe it took a year or 2 or 3 for you to see the results of the work that you put in. Well, now it's happening almost instantaneously. There's so many strange experiences that people have been having the last 3 days too. Also has to do with our ability, our mental abilities, our call it your psychic abilities or your psi abilities. This is remote viewing. It's the ability to hear, clairaudience, clear knowing. There's just these channels of information that's opening up. And so one of the examples that we had is yesterday we were driving, and we were driving a different vehicle that somebody had loaned us because we were having some car trouble. And we're sitting at the light, and my husband was just really intently thinking about, I hope this car doesn't die. Well, this car is going to die. And that was kind of what his thoughts were. And immediately the car just cut out. I'm like, did that just happen? And he's like, yeah, I was just thinking about, I was just worried about it. We kind of laughed it off. But we had several more things like that happen. It shows your ability to create. And if that didn't happen, we might have not thought anything of it. So you have these synchronicities that happen in your life that points out that you're on the right track. They're kind of like guideposts. So I had another incident this morning where somebody texted me, asked me for some information about, just some things that are going on, like within the body, what the messages of the body would be. And I read the message, I replied, and a couple minutes I went, back and look at the messages again because I was going to add something to it. And there was a completely different part added to the message that actually didn't even apply to this person. She was talking about somebody else. So little things like that. And you'll read the Walling's post too. They had incidents like that too. So how do you tap into this part? You've heard me a lot talk about the I am. I am are the two most powerful sounds that you can create. It is your ability to create. It taps directly into that divine source within you, within your heart code. And so you can say, I'm here to receive what is held as information, whether you're working with a person. You can do it with water. Water alchemy is really important right now. So if I were to hold a glass of water, I can connect with the water and that way connect to all the water on the planet, the water within my body. It gets pretty big that way. I'm here to receive what you hold as information, and I will translate it. I will hold it with me, and I will vibrate it. I'm here to activate the library of this planet. That means that you are here to participate in the transformational shift that's happening, clearing out old belief systems. Think of it as defragging the system, defragging you, your DNA, and think about a new reality that you want to create. That could be for yourself personally, since this is 11/11, everything does go back to you. So any intent that you set for yourself is also automatically helping all humanity. And this helps unlock the DNA. And so there might be a little bit of a purging process too. That's kind of what I'm expecting with that. Your ability to create the most powerful way is with sound. When you think frequency and vibration, there's always sound involved, sound and light. That's, if you were to step out of the matrix, everything is created with sound and light, what we know of so far. So I invite you to be creative, to go through this transformation process, to keep in mind that all things are there to help you shed some of these old perceptions, old ways of thinking. Don't get too caught up in fear. Fear is just a killer. It'll just shut everything down. It'll stop you dead in your tracks. And so look at fear through a lens of information. What are you avoiding, or what are you afraid of? There's something else behind that. And then make a decision based on an open-hearted, compassionate, caring, kind place from within yourself, from your heart. So we want to meld the brain and the physical brain and the heart brain together. So I'm expecting more and more things to happen. I've had a lot of messages, emails, text messages from people here in the last few days, asking about what's going on, how to handle certain things. And the best thing is trust your intuition, learn to listen to yourself, recognize when information within yourself is arising and it's pointing out that you're still identifying with an old belief pattern or an old perception. And an old, I just mean that it is not relevant to you anymore, or it didn't really come from you in the first place. It was an outside influence. So strip down these layers, deal with the things you need to deal with. Be happy. You don't have to work so hard. Enjoy life. Because regardless of what happens in our external environment, it's important that we find that calmness within us. Because if we're centered and calm within ourselves, then we're not going to make rash decisions, and we're not going to react in a way where we feel bad or we feel guilty afterwards, we have to remedy the situation. So as we're accelerating, I encourage you to slow down. So I love you, and comment on this if you have any questions. I'll be checking it during the day and be replying to it. So love you all. Bye.